our guests. We are all environmentalists from different environmental organizations. I'm from Lithuanian environmental NGO called Atgaja community, and we have guests from international organization which is called Climate Action Network, which is a global network. And Erika Hopes is coming from the European office of Climate Action Network, and we have our partner from Danish Organization for Sustainable Energy. And I think the one person whom you saw in the movie, Reben, he is a colleague of Henning, I think. So you can also ask some things what you have seen in the movie, how they work and everything. So, and I must say very clearly and straightforward, I'm anti-nuclear activist. And I think that nuclear energy and fossil fuels can be replaced by more sustainable energy options. And our organization, we also produced a vision for Lithuania, how energy strategy could be developed that we could replace both nuclear and fossil fuels with renewable energy and energy efficiency by 2050. We have presented the study to authorities and they said, it's very interesting, maybe it's even possible, but we have different political preferences. So, and I think it's worth to discuss these things and what are opportunities on the European level and how Danish society is moving towards this vision of fossil-free future, because they also have the same energy scenario, and this energy scenario is adopted by the government, I think. So, tell us how you decided to do this.
Thank you. Our vision in this organization, Sustainable Energy, is that we have a sustainable energy 100% in Denmark in 2030. And the government says that it's going to be in 2050. So we have a little fight there, but anyway, it's still 100% in at least 2050. In Denmark, we have no nuclear. We have oil from the sea, and then we have sustainable energy for about, right now, 30%. And it's growing very fast now. We are doing a lot in solar cells in Denmark and windmills. The biggest company in the world is in windmills is Vestas, as we saw the name on here, is from Denmark. So even a small country can make a big contribution. Is there any questions?
Maybe yes. We can give a short introduction to Erika.
Thank you. Well, I particularly look at energy efficiency, in fact, and coming from the Brussels European Union perspective, the EU has the potential to reduce its energy consumption by 20% by the year 2020, and actually to make 50% of the emission reductions that we need to make, the greenhouse gas emission reductions that we need to make by the year 2050, can come from energy efficiency measures that save more money than they cost to install. The problem is that unlocking some of these energy efficiency potentials, actually making these things happen, is a bit complicated. It's not complicated. It's the solutions are very simple, but there are barriers to them, like the fact that you need money to actually invest in the first place, and that renovating your house, for example, is quite some hassle, and that people don't necessarily know what they have to do. So it's just a question of information and awareness. And I've been learning while I've been here that in Lithuania there was a program to renovate multi-apartment buildings, which wasn't very successful. So there now is an opportunity to improve this, because actually the EU, the European Union, has just agreed a new directive that will require the countries in the EU, the member states, to deliver 1.5% annual energy savings, and it puts in place lots of different provisions that will help to overcome some of these barriers to energy savings. But the question is whether the government will actually manage to do that in the next few years. So there's a very big opportunity there at the moment, but part of the reason that the seminar was held today was because now it's kind of up to partly the public and partly companies that have an interest in the energy efficiency sector to make sure that they get their message to the government about what they would find necessary and helpful as sort of policy help to do this.
Okay, maybe we can switch to the questions. Please ask what.
I think I have a comment.
Yeah.
I think it's very easy for Denmark to talk about 100% renewable energy because, well, you locked all your forests, and now you have all of these open areas to build the windmills there. But when you have a country like, for example, Lithuania, where it's forested, I think it's about 30%, and you have, well, a lot of single or two very small villages there, which of course don't want windmills near them. Then you get a problem there. And the second problem here, especially in Lithuania, is of course the continental. We are in the continental part, more in the shelf than in the shelf. So the alternative in Lithuania could, I don't know, what kind of you see, for example, when you don't, there is not such a thing as a green energy. I mean, all the energies that you produce has an environmental impact. The impact differs, and that's the only difference there. So the renewable energy, as most people talk, has the smaller environmental impact. But if you look at it from other perspective, not the CO2 perspective, but from biodiversity perspective, it's not quite so. Because windmills take a lot of area, hydropower shivers all the river ecosystem and stuff like that. So the energy efficiency that, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, yeah, that you talked about, I think this is the best alternative. To educate people to switch to all the electrical things they have in the houses. And this is one of the biggest problems, I guess, in America. So, but education is a very long process. So I think I even didn't have a question, I just have a long comment.
Yeah, you're right. It's another situation here, and I can't tell you what you're going to do. You have to decide yourself. You're an independent country now, and you have to take over what you're going to do now. It's your responsibility. But in Denmark, we had the same problems. What are we going to do? And then we started to develop ideas, and you have to develop your own ideas. But this, we do also do efficiency works in Denmark and rebuilding houses and make a lot of isolation and new windows with double glass and triple glass and all that kind of thing. So that's the most efficient way to do it is to make the buildings more efficient.
First of all, maximises the energy efficiency and energy saving. So you reduce demand as much as you can, and then you use renewables to fulfil as much of the gap as you can, and then finally, if necessary, you reduce fossil fuels as efficiently as you can. Because indeed, for example, in the UK, where I come from, we have a lot of indigenous renewable capacity. We have a lot of wind, we have a lot of sea, we have many ways of generating energy, but it would take up an awful lot of space, as you mentioned, and the British public don't like windmills. They make a lot of fuss about them. Every time somebody wants to build a wind farm, there are lots of posh people who don't want their view blocked and this kind of thing. So, of course, there are a lot of reasons to do the efficiency. And in fact, we try to promote the idea of efficiency as an energy source in a way, the idea of negawatts, so not megawatts, but negawatts, because if you have a need to match up energy supply and demand. One way you can do that is by building energy supply. Another way is by reducing demand. And in California, they actually have a very cool law that they is a pure way to achieve this savings first idea. You actually can't get planning permission to build a new power plant unless you can first demonstrate that you can't achieve the same need by means of demand reduction. And so what you actually can get is energy companies that put in place measures to bring down demand. So they distribute efficient appliances, or they do renovations of factories and buildings and so on, in such a way that the demand comes down, and that avoids them having to build new power stations. And there are examples of this kind of project in Europe as well, but California is the only place I know that actually has this law of save before you build. But that's something that we're sort of trying to promote for some other European countries.
Just to comment a few words about the Lithuanian situation. We have a national strategy for the efficient use of energy, and which was made for the year 2006-2010, so it's already expired. And I think for the new government, it's a time and opportunity to discuss the update of this national energy strategy for efficient use of energy. But in the previous strategy, it was estimated that technical potential for Lithuania is that they could save up to 35% of energy in the housing sector, like in the living places where we live, and up to 56% of energy in the public buildings. During the last 4 years, government invested, I think, more than 400 million liters from the European funds, and they achieved 10% of energy efficiency and energy savings out of this 56% which exist in the public buildings. Still, we have huge opportunities to save energy. And in the housing sector, our success is even lower, because altogether there are 468 houses, I think, insulated. And during the last 4 years, if everybody of you remember the very ambitious plan of the current government, that they promised to insulate and to modernize 2,000 multi-apartment houses every single year. So up to now, we should have like 8,000 houses renovated, but we have only six out of 8,000. So it's still a good opportunity for the next government left. And it means that we have a huge potential for energy saving and for energy efficiency, because Lithuania currently is using 2.6 times more energy per GDP than average EU country. And again, it's a huge potential for us. I guess that many of you here are working in different companies or in different sectors where you do it in your daily life. Because in Lithuania we have companies, we have people, we have skilled workforce, skilled specialists who know how to do these projects, and they are implementing these projects. The only thing we need a good legal framework, and we need a political will that would encourage to go this way. About renewables, in Lithuania we have estimated potential for 2,000 megawatt of installed capacity for windmills, assuming
offshore,
that both offshore and onshore. I cannot say how much offshore, how much onshore, I don't remember exactly. But if the estimated efficiency of windmill is like up to 30%, so altogether we could have like 660 megawatts of the real capacity. It means that from the nuclear power plant we are planning to get 400 megawatts. I'm not talking about biomass, because the estimated potential of biomass exceeds our needs twice. We could still be exporting electricity from biomass, but I'm not sure if we need to do this. And again, first we need to focus on energy efficiency because there's no need to heat not insulated houses with biomass. I think at first, of course, we need to insulate our houses, to use all possible ways to improve our energy efficiency before switching completely to renewable energy. Or we could develop things in parallel, but first of all this development needs to be based on the very carefully calculated energy scenario. What is the potential? What is technical potential? What is economical potential? What needs to be done first? And we just need to do this because Denmark is the country which shows this example. They go this way. Germany was the country. First of all, they calculated very, very carefully what are the potential, what it will bring to the country to close these nuclear power plants and to replace them with energy efficient measures and with the renewables. And they established the energy policy which is called ENERGETINŽ, and they go with the implementation of it. I mean, we know quite little about the German solution, and we think that Germans are crazy. They decided to close their nuclear power plants by 2022, and maybe they just will get back to the caves and they will they will live without electricity and something. But how you can think about the country like Germany that they would do this? They were really measuring 9 times before making this decision, and this decision is made on very careful calculations. So I think it's a way how we should proceed.
Norėčiau pakomentuoti, galima. Tai teko bendrauti su keliais žmonėmis iš Vokietijos, tai jie sako, kad kaip tik uždarius atominės elektrinės kaina iššoko beveik pusę karto ir dalis žmonių kaip tik reikalauja, tie patys, kurie reikalavo pereiti uždaryti jas po Fukushimos, reikalauja jas atidaryti atgal. Tai vėlgi su tais paskaičiavimais yra sunkoka labai.
Gerai, aš tik tais atsakysiu, kaip man atsakyti dabar lietuviškai angliškai. It's about the prices for electricity in Germany that they're increasing. Also, you could respond because I think Denmark has one of the most expensive electricity in the European Union. So how you pay it? Is it like... Because my quick response is that about 80% of Germans still support transition to the renewable energy, because it's not only about the price for the per kilowatt hour, what you need to consider. The development of renewable energy already brought 300,000 jobs to Germany, and they also are becoming the country which exports this technologies of energy efficiency and renewables. It again brings additional income to the country, because if you just look into this cost per kilowatt hour, it doesn't say everything. It doesn't give the clear picture. But if Germans can afford to pay this from the regular income, maybe for them it's not a big deal to pay 23 euro cents per kilowatt hour if they have a sufficient income. And maybe they see much bigger benefits even from this increasing price for electricity. We also have increasing price for electricity because we need to subsidize Gazprom, because large part of our, not large, but 4 cents of our electricity bill goes to Gazprom, and it will increase from the next year. So maybe we could add 1 more cent, and maybe we could switch this 5 cents to development of renewables and to implement energy efficiency, and we would pay this 4 cents to our people across the country. In the small villages, in the towns, they would have jobs. If we would switch our gas-burning power plants to the cogeneration power plants, which would produce heat and electricity and which would use biomass, people in the rural areas would have jobs. We would not need to pay them social subsidies. They would not go to the Ireland, and we wouldn't be shrinking nation. Maybe we would be growing nation. How do you pay this?
In Denmark, we are saying tax the burner, not the earner, which means that if we raise the electricity price, it's good because if you're more using more, you pay in tax. So it's not a bad thing to have high prices because then the other people those who really are working, they can earn more money and pay less tax. But another thing is that if you put up windmills at the same system as you got the nuclear or the oil power station and so on, with big windmills that we saw in the United States, nobody cares about it. So you have to have the user, the consumer, to earn and to be a part of this system. So I mean, when we put up a windmill in Denmark, we try to sell as much of the mill to the local people, so they then earn the mill, and whenever the wind is blowing, they can feel the money in their pockets. That makes it easier to put up windmills. And so solar cells we have on the roofs of the houses, and this is a very democratic way to do it because nobody can take your electricity away from you when you have it on the roof, and you can use it as much as you want to. So the sustainable energy is for the people, while nuclear is for the government or the big companies. That's the way it works, and I think I would like to own my own electricity. That's more easy.
I think one point is that since renewable technologies are newer and need to be developed somewhat and have more economies of scale to bring the prices down, it's normal that there would be subsidies needed at the beginning to make them to make them interesting and to make them functional. But one thing we tend to forget is just how many subsidies have gone into the existing power supply that we have. So for coal-fired power stations, particularly for nuclear, huge amounts of public subsidy have gone into these forms of electricity generation earlier on when they were being developed, and still now when new plants are built. And when people are complaining about the amount of subsidy that renewables get, which the big sort of traditional energy companies that don't want to diversify tend to do, we must remember that this is only a fraction really of what the fossil fuel generation had in the beginning. And just one other point I wanted to make is that I think rising energy prices are a concern for everybody, particularly in the economic climate of the moment. But here again, energy efficiency is a very good thing, because not only does greater energy efficiency reduce the amount of energy that you need to buy, it actually reduces the price of the energy that you do still buy as well, through a number of mechanisms. One is that obviously, globally speaking, if the demand for fossil fuels goes down or for other energy sources goes down, then by the law of supply and demand, the price will go down. That is one point. But also because of the way that electricity grids work, the price and power markets, the price is set by the most expensive power supply that is supplying the electricity at any one time. Now, if the wind blows, then once a windmill is up and running, that energy doesn't cost anything. So the most expensive forms of power generation are pushed off of the grid effectively, which means that the price is set at a lower level, so prices are lower. And also, if energy demand is lower, then less infrastructure is needed. And if you take all of these different mechanisms into account, then actually energy prices can be reduced quite substantially by good investments in energy efficiency, even on an energy system level. And so, for example, we estimate that across the European Union, by the year 2020, we could be making 200 billion euros of net savings. So that's net savings after you've paid to invest in the energy efficiency measures, which, on a per capita basis is still a pretty interesting amount of money that people would be saving on their energy bills.
I saw someone wanted to comment.
Saying that one of the things that can solve the problem is like lowering the demand for energy. But in this film, they show that the demand for energy, like the global demand, will double in 20 years. So if you lower the demand like for 1% a year and do a little calculation, you have to be very smart that this doesn't solve the problem globally. So we have to think about the smarter supply of energy. And we can talk about like subsidizing green power or the nuclear power, but I don't know. For me, at this moment, like the smartest thing is the nuclear power, and I don't kind of got any like strong arguments. Like what's the problem with the nuclear power? Like in this movie, or like I don't know what arguments do you use? Well.
Yes, as I said, nuclear power is for the government or the big companies. It's not for the people. You don't earn anything from the nuclear powers, and it's very risky business. As I said in the film, if you get close to a war, you have to close it down because then they can bomb it, and you're finished for the rest of your life here in Lithuania. You just got your own independence, and if you get a nuclear station, you're not independent anymore. You have to use this nuclear power for about 100 years. You can't switch it off. There's no idea in that. So I think it's bind you up if you vote for nuclear. It's too risky. And it's still got dependent on the technicians in technology, which is in other countries, not the only technology. And
Does it mean that it binds you economically? And I think
yes, and
if it's efficient for you economically to do that, you will not have the you will not want to change it.
No, you want to change it, but you can't change it because the technology is in another country. You don't have the technology here in Lithuania, so you bind you up on the technology too.
I mean,
you import all the
buying the Uranus?
Pardon?
I will try to use the slogan of this film festival. I say, you decide. Good thing about nuclear energy is when you build it once, it might run for a long time, maybe for 60 years, maybe for 30 years, and it could produce large amount of energy. Also, it's good when it works and if it does not explode.
Actually,
but that's the benefits of the nuclear energy. If it's there, if it runs, it produces large amount of energy and you can use it. Know what are the risks, and because this is positive side and negative side of the risk is that you might not be able to build it according to the budget which you expected. You can be very optimistic about yourself, but you also can look around to others, how they succeed. After Chernobyl, two countries which are building new nuclear power plants in Lithuania are Finland and France. Let's look to the examples. Finland decided that they want to build a new nuclear reactor in the existing nuclear power plant in Olkiluoto. Parliament gave a permission to the private company to build it. So they're building the third reactor in already existing nuclear power plant. And private company does it. Finland is the country with a very low rate of corruption. You know, it's a very transparent country. When the parliament approved the decision, the company which said we will build it and it will be cheap and reliable was France. Most advanced country in the world, probably the most advanced country in the world with the nuclear energy technology. They have 58 nuclear reactors themselves. They have state company Areva, which is developing the technology. They have state company Electricity de France, which is running this nuclear reactors. They came to Finland. They said, we have European pressurized water reactor, 3+ generation, the most modern reactor in the world. We will build it for you for 2.5 billion euros. Finnish parliament approved. They were negotiating contract for 1 year. When they signed the contract, price was already 3.2 billion euros. And it was said that the reactor will be built in May of 2009. This private company, a few months ago, announced that reactor definitely will not be built, will not be operational in 2014. It means 5 years of delay. Current costs for the construction are 6.6 billion euros. Finland is still importing electricity from Russia because they were building this reactor to have independence from Russia. And nobody knows when this reactor will be finished and how much it will cost in the end. When the reactor was proposed in Finland, company promised that up to 50% of jobs will be Finnish workers, Finnish companies. Finland got up to 25% of contracts of supply and works. Currently, there are 3,800 workers working in this construction place. About 800 of them are Finns. The rest are Portuguese, Polish people, Ukrainians, Bulgarians, from all around the world. And that's it, how it works. And this is the France country which has this technology, which knows how to do these things. They are late. And is it an exclusive case? No, because in France, the same company, they build the same reactor in France, in their own home country, and they have the same budget expenses, which are exceeding like 3 times the planned budget. They also are late for a few years, and they face the same problems. Let's look into United Kingdom. They decided that the government of United Kingdom decided they will go with new nuclear program in 2006, at the same time like Lithuania. And British government said, there is a nuclear renaissance, new reactors are available to the market, and we will build them under the energy market conditions. Private investors will come, they will build, and there will be no governmental subsidies. They were looking for the investors for 6 years, like we are doing it right now. They got several investors into the business. Among them were biggest German energy companies, E.ON and RWA. They formed the joint venture Horizon. Now this Horizon is on sale. German company said, no, it's not economically viable projects, and they withdraw from nuclear investments in UK. British government right now is negotiating with Electricity de France, French state-owned company, about long-term contracts that they would buy energy for around 30 years for 18 British pence per kilowatt hour. Not 18 Lithuanian cents. 18 British cents per kilowatt hour. So for the fixed price, for the long-term contract. And they don't talk about the market. That market will help to develop these new nuclear power plants. This is over. In United States, they didn't manage to build a single nuclear power plant since 1974. If you would go to the Wall Street, to the normal businessman, and if you would suggest them to invest into nuclear, they would laugh.
But,
it's not profitable because it's not viable on the normal energy market.
But does atomic energy has some disadvantages as an energy, but not as an investment or economic?
Okay, as I said, it produces energy, but windmills also produce energy. But the main to my perspective, the main disadvantage of the atomic energy is nuclear waste. Currently, there is no solution in the world how to deal with the nuclear waste. And nuclear waste is a long-term solution. Let's say energy will be used for 60 years by 2 generations. 1 generation is 30 years. Then after 60 years, you need to leave this power plant that the spent nuclear fuel would cool for 30, 40 years before you would be able to dismantle it. during this 30, 40 years, you need also spend money on cooling. This nuclear power plant does not produce energy anymore, and next 2 generations already use the electricity. The 3rd generation is left to deal with the problems. They are cooling this nuclear power plant, and the next generation will be dismantling it. Probably not knowing how to do this, because technologies does not exist. And nuclear waste, highly radioactive nuclear waste, mostly spent fuel, will remain dangerous for at least 100,000 years. It needs to be buried somewhere deep underground and kept away from any access by the humans. Nobody knows how to do that, and nobody knows how much it costs.
So how do they do it today?
Today, in the world, United States tried to dig this underground tunnel in Rocky Mountains. They were doing it for 10 years. They spent around $10 billion. And when Obama came to the office, he ordered them some independent commission. They investigated this project. They found that there are so many technical problems that it will not be safe, and they just canceled it. There are currently Sweden, Finland, and France who are the most advanced countries developing technology how to deal with the radioactive waste, to put them somewhere in the underground storage. In Finland, they tried to put it into the rock under the Baltic Sea, but again, they have big problems, both of the container, because they expected that they will use copper and special sort of clay, that they would put steel canisters with the spent nuclear fuel into the clay, and they would surround it with copper, and then it will be safe, and it will be safe against the corrosion, and it should last. They expected that it could last for 3,000 years, but they did additional measurements and additional research, and they found that it will last maybe only 300 years. So they thought it's not a reliable technology, and now they are reviewing this technology, what they can do. Finland is relying on Swedish technology, which is not approved. But Finland, they are digging the tunnel under the Baltic Sea in the rock, in the granite rock, and they expect that they will finish this tunnel in 2020, and they will start to load their own nuclear waste into this tunnel up to 2100 year. So they are planning everything up to finish in 2100. I think it's a bit optimistic to think that everything will go smoothly, everything will be stable, there will be a stable Finnish government, there will be no conflicts, no wars, nothing, and that they will complete everything. But they also face the same problems, that this tunnel is leaking, there are lots of water coming in. They also face very simple problems, how to inform future generations that there are very dangerous substances buried. Should they forget this place when they will feel it? And these are really serious problems, and nobody has an answer. And at least Finnish scientists, Finnish politicians are talking very openly about it. They say, we don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, and I've read about this scenario that in 50 years, like space flights will get cheaper, and so the atomic waste would be like an efficient way to just.
Yeah, but okay, let's look, because everybody assumes that the space technologies should be very reliable, but there were quite many accidents when all the spaceships exploded, and they didn't start properly. And imagine that the spaceship is loaded with a very dangerous nuclear waste, and it explodes on the startup, or it explodes in the upper layers of the atmosphere, and this nuclear waste would spread across the globe. It's a realistic scenario. I mean, of course, this was discussed and this was reviewed, but I think scientists decided that it's really too risky. Radioactivity is dangerous, and it causes genetic changes, both not only in human organisms but also in organisms of every live creature.
But the research that is done in the Chernobyl area showed that biodiversity is high than in all the other areas where humans live.
Yesterday was a very interesting movie also from this festival, and I encourage you to see this movie. You also can find it on internet and YouTube. It's called Chernobyl Forever. made by a Belgian producer, and there was a guy, I think he's a senior official in Chernobyl nuclear power plant, because there were 4 reactors, 1 exploded and 3 reactors were in operation for a long time, and the senior official who was responsible for the energy security. And after 30 years of research in this Chernobyl zone, they admit by themselves very clearly they know very little about the consequences and how these consequences will develop in the long term. About the consequences, there's one very reliable scientific study ordered by the German government and produced by independent experts. It's called KIK study. If KIK with 2K, you can search on Google and you will find the study. And it was released in 2007. And in the study, the scientists research impacts of radioactivity, or let's say illness of young children up to 5 years who live in the surrounding of 5 kilometers around nuclear power plants. And they researched all places, all 18 nuclear power plants in Germany. And they found that the average rate of cancer in these very small children increases up to the medium level in Germany up to 60%. And the blood cancer, leukemia, is higher than 118%. And these power plants are operating in a normal way, without any accidents.
But I wasn't talking about the effect to humans. I was talking to the effect to biodiversity.
Okay, but we still care about humans as well. So, I mean, these are very clear risks. There are more risks with nuclear power, and we can name all of them. And accidents happen. Unfortunately, they do. And, okay, when nothing happens, but when it happens, you face a huge problem. Maybe countries such as Russia or China or United States, maybe they are able to deal with this explosions and to clean up it and then to pay for it. But every small country needs to consider it. And for Germany, when they decided to close the nuclear power plants, the decision was based also on these estimations. What would happen if there would be a big accident in Germany? And the insurance companies did very careful calculations how much it would cost if they could insure the risks. And they found it's just economically it doesn't make sense to insure the risks of the nuclear power plant. You wouldn't find a single normal insurance company in the world who would insure the risks. Ignalina was running not insured at all. The minimal threshold for the governments, how much they need to insure the civil liabilities, $300 million, I think, not euros. And for the $300 million, it's either operator of the nuclear power plant responsible for damage up to this amount, or the government, or they could share the responsibilities. And beyond that amount, it's the government or the state who would need to compensate damages and losses. Just think yourself. Okay, I'm sorry.
Aš manau, svarbiausias dalykas yra kaina. Ir dabar dėl ko žmonės nesiema šitų visų žalių sprendimų, atsinaujinčių išteklių, dėl kainos. Tai ar yra kokie rimtesni paskaičiavimai, kaip galėtų sumažėti kaina dėl to, kad didėja apimtis tokios energijos ir kad tobulėja technologija? Kiek jinai jau ištobulinta ir kiek dar turi perspektyvos tobulėti? Aš esu pats skaičiavęs, kiek savo namui kainuotų pasistatyti, ten vėjo gainę arba saulės baterijas ir, dabar tikrai neapsimoka. Tai, žodžiu, ar yra rimtesnių paskaičiavimų?
Ar tai liečia energijos taupimo technologijas ar atsinaujinančių energijos šaltinių technologijas?
Šaltinių technologijos, tiesiog kiek galėtų spikti tas, kad tiesiog finansiškai būtų.
Kol svečiai sugalvos savo atsakymą, aš pasakysiu tik trumpą savo atsakymą. Until you will think your response. Vėjo elektrinėms, ta prasme, yra duodamas 12 metų laikotarpis, kai yra subsidijuojamos jos. Ta kaina, kurios parduoda į tinklą, yra subsidijuojama ir tos subsidijos pastoviai mažėja, kol po 12 metų tos vėjo elektrinės turės dirbti normaliom rinkos sąlygom ir pardavinėti elektrą už tokią kainą, kokia bus tuo metu rinkoje. Tai jau beveik ir šiuo metu apsimoka į jas investuoti. Tas pats visų atsinaujinančių energijos šaltinių rėmimo logika yra tokia, kad tie šaltiniai yra subsidijuojami tam tikrą laiko tarpą, mažinant tų subsidijų dydį kasmet, kol jie galų gale turi tapti konkurencingi rinkoje. Tai iš tikrųjų iš visų atsinaujinančių energijos išteklių vėjo energetika pasaulyje šiuo metu vystosi sparčiausiai. Ta prasme, privatus investuotojai, įvairūs fondai daugiausiai investuoja į vėjo energetiką visam pasauliu. Daugiausiai turbūt yra Kinija. Kinija iš vis yra lyderiaujanti šalis atsinaujinančių energijos išteklių vystymosi srityje, saulės ir vėjo pagrinde. Ir jų atsinaujinančių energijos išteklių programa lenkia jų branduolinės energetikos programą šiuo metu. Taip pat Ispanija, Vokietija, Didžioji Britanija, nors ir nelabai entuziastingai, bet vis tiek vysto tą atsinaujinančią energetiką. Ir visur bankai gan noriai skolina tiem projektam.
Bet kiek galėtų atpigti? Kaip galima prognozuoti tą atpigimą? Ar negalima?
Aš negaliu atsakyti tiksliai, tai paklausiu svečio. So, how much prices for renewable energy should go down until the renewable energy technologies will be cost effective and every regular consumer could see it beneficial that they could invest into renewable energy?
For windmills in Denmark, it's less than 10 years it's paid back. If you compare it, I don't know, but you still have no pollution and all. There's a lot of benefits, but it's in the economy is less than 10 years in a windmill in Denmark. But again, we have high prices on energy, so maybe that's why it's going faster in Denmark than here.
Yeah, I'm not completely sure I understand the question, but for photovoltaics, in most countries in Europe, at the moment, it is still possible to get a special subsidized feed-in tariff for them. So if you pay the costs to install your photovoltaics on your roof, then you pay those upfront costs, but then you get to put the electricity that you generate back into the grid, and you get paid a subsidy for that. And the level varies in different countries, and actually quite a few of them have come down recently. But in the UK at the moment, for example, it takes about between 8 and 10 years for the investment to pay back at current prices. But it's going down all the time, and I think it's about the price of an average solar panel has come down by about 400% in the last 10 years with the increase of take-up of this technology. So it is coming down very fast, but of course you need to get this balance of the increased economies of scale by people doing it, thanks to the supportive policies, which obviously does come from government subsidy in the beginning, but eventually it will become not necessary to have this subsidy.
Reikėtų išversti gal, ar ne? Tai prašau, mačiau, ten kažkas galvoja ranką kėlė. Ar jūs turit stiprų balsą ar mikrofoną pasakyti?
Hi guys, I want to ask, want to comment about the geothermal energy sources, why they are not being used. What's the problem? So there's in the earth it's 2,000 joules capabilities, and now if you would use geothermal, we would need only 0.5. And so what's the problem about why this energy source is not being used?
Could respond about geothermal.
Try. I'm really not an expert on this, but I think part of the issue is that they're quite locationally specific or geographically specific where you can use them. But what can be done is obviously everybody can use a ground source heat pump. You know what a heat pump is? It's like a backwards fridge. So you take in the heat from the you take in the energy from either the air or the ground around, and then it goes through the process and it generates heat, which then you can put into your building. And ground source heat pumps are very effective, but they are a bit of hassle to install because obviously you need to dig up your garden or whatever if you want to install one. But this is something that, with a bit of increased promotion, I think, and possibly making consumers more available, that they're an option that bring down your bills quite substantially. More people will be starting to take these up.
The heat pumps, you can get heat pumps from ground to air and from air to air and even from water to water and from air to water. This is a very different kind of heat pumps you can have, and they're very effective. Yes, I've got solar cells on my roof, and it's paid back in 15 years at least.
Are you producing electricity or heat?
Yes, it is producing the electricity I use, these solar cells, and it's very easy. 2 days it's put on the roof, and you don't have to move anything, you don't have to do anything. Just 2 workers, 2 days, and you don't feel anything. So it's very easy to build a solar cell, and no problems.
How about industrial, like for thousands of people, like a power plant, but geothermal, like an atomical power plant, 1 gigawatt energy, but from geothermal energy. I heard that the problem is that the underground rivers may dry down because of that.
I don't know much about it.
I also cannot comment this, but I think you should look very carefully in the experience of the geothermal project, which was implemented with the support of the World Bank in the western part of Lithuania, near Klaipėda. I think the problem they found was that water was very salty, much more salty what they expected. And all the equipment is corroding, and they really need to filter all this salt from the water which is circulating. And I think that technical data is available there, and in Lithuania there is this technical potential for the geothermal, but I think also there are some technically limiting factors why this source of energy is not installed or not used widely. Because I think also we should look into the market, which sources of renewables could be installed first, which are the cost effective. Because personally, I don't know, but I have some sort of limitation or very conservative approach towards photovoltaics in Lithuania, and they think that our wind energy and biomass potential is much bigger, and these sources could be developed cheaper and will larger benefits for the consumers than the photovoltaics. But we see that there is a boom of photovoltaics currently in Lithuania, and smart people buy these solar cells, and they expect to get subsidies from the government, and they expect to benefit from developing a small scale up to 30 kilowatt hours privately owned power plants.
Okay. I have 3 questions, comments. The first one is like solar plants and windmills, are they reliable? Because you don't always have wind and sunlight, and is it like because on the movie I saw that you now can store the energy from solar power and windmills for tomorrow, for the other days. Is it really possible now? So, and the second question is, what would you offer for Lithuania? Because I don't think we can move to renewable energy in 10 years or 20 years, and we need the energy now. And what can you offer, like, for now? Because we import the energy from Russia. And the third one is Lithuania doesn't have so much like land, because 30% is forests. The other half of the land is agriculture, and like we don't have much attractive places like mountains or pyramids like Egypt. So if we build all over the place in windmills and solar plants, so we won't have any place for tourists, because like most of them are attracted in Lithuania by our natural land.
So firstly, on the question of reliability, this is indeed one of the problems or the issues with many renewable sources, that they are intermittent, so the wind doesn't blow all the time, the sun doesn't show all the time. However, there have been a lot of very clever people looking at if the whole of the European Union was to move to a more or less 100% renewable power system by 2050, would this be possible? And the conclusion by almost all of the studies I've seen is that it would be possible if you have a sufficiently wide range of different renewables. So it's pretty unlucky if the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining and the waves aren't waving and all of these things aren't happening at once. And with the right combination of a wide combination of renewables, of very good interconnections between different parts of Europe, so places with lots of solar energy, for example, like Spain, and lots of wind, like the UK or Denmark, if they are connected up so that they can export their excess to other areas that need it. Those will help a lot to balance it all out as a functioning overall system. And another thing that can help a lot is, well, energy storage, like you mentioned. The technologies for that are getting much better. And also demand response. So you can shift the demand somewhat using smart energy technologies so that you can make the demand occur when the supply is available for things where it doesn't really matter to the user when it's being done. So there are a number of different options for this. It is an issue, but there are very possible solutions that are being examined and look like they will work. On the question of what can Lithuania be offered, I have a very easy answer to that for the immediate future, which is energy efficiency. I gather you have a lot of multi-apartment buildings that need renovating, and you just need a very well worked out programme for doing that. And so there are a number of good ideas that could be proposed to Lithuania, and we tried to do some of that in this seminar this afternoon, where the Ministry of Energy was present, even if they kept very quiet about what they were thinking. But we made some suggestions to them about what kind of policies could help to drive the energy efficiency.